I'm so because it's an Aruban, zeg maar, that's did his profession in studied in Belgium, lives in Belgium, in Germany. But when it comes to see his family, he's willing to share his knowledge with us. And last time he told us that he was busy writing a book, and this time we could see that he finished his book with a beautiful name, Metaphysics of Trust, on freedom, on calculation and social cooperation. Last time he spoke about that topic. This time he will delve in another topic. And what I also really like about his ideas is that he studied various disciplines. He studied economics, philosophy, political science and organization, and he has a doctorate in engineering. So here you can see that in his ideas, all these disciplines are connected and comes together. So I hope also that, like last time, he let you think, and also there will be room for questions so that we can have an interaction with him. Thank you very much, and I wish you success with your lecture.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. I'm very happy to be here. I hope this sound.
It's for the people on Zoom, but yeah.
Okay, welcome everyone on Zoom. So this topic tonight will be on the value of the economic approach for good governance. So I'll say a few words about my background. I cannot switch automatically to the next slide, but I can click underneath. So Mika already said a few words about this. I can say that for what I'm presenting now is somewhat of a summary of what I've been thinking about for the past 16 years. So in 2006, when my doctorate in engineering started, I did an investigation on the management of value creation in urban development. And I guess I never stopped thinking about what value means. Afterwards, I was so perplexed by the topic that I decided to study again, to do philosophy. And afterwards, I did a doctorate in economics. And also, in the past years, I've been teaching various courses. And last year, after my book came out, I started teaching a course on capitalism, the economic and ethical perspectives. So I guess I'm picking up more explicitly a topic that I started in 2006. And I'm very happy that I can present also the consequences of some of the insights that I got from my book that came out last year. So this is the agenda. I'll first talk about the colonization of the economic approach, some problems with this development. Then I'll discuss what I believe to be the most fundamental axiom for social science and what the consequences are for good governance. So this is a quote by Lazier. He was the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, and in his function as chairman, he was the main economic advisor for President Bush, and he was also a professor in Stanford, if I'm not mistaken. He says, by almost any market test, economics is the premier social science. The field attracts the most students, enjoys the attention of policymakers and journalists, and gains notice, both positive and negative, from other scientists. In large part, the success of economics derives from its rigor and relevance, as well as from its generality. The economic toolbox can be used to address a large variety of problems drawn from a wide range of topics. Now, this is a quote from a Nobel Laureate Gary Becker from his Nobel lecture. In fact, Gary Becker was one of the main inspirations for Lazier, so it's not surprising to have seen the quote before. Now, Gary Becker says, the rational choice model provides the most promising basis presently available for a unified approach to the analysis of the social world by scholars from the social sciences. Now, these are some signs of the economic imperialist development in 1969. It's the first Nobel Prize that was given out. Two people in the economic sciences or doing different studies in economic sciences, the only social science to get a Nobel Prize. 10 years later, somewhat 10 years later, the economic approach to human behavior came out from Gary Becker, a landmark book where he tried to show how behaviors outside of market relations can also be explained by means of the economic method or approach, he calls it. 10 years later, again, a lot of different people have seen the economic imperialism, and the subtitle is Economic Method Applied Outside the Field of Economics. And now it's not only going into the different social sciences, but we also see it coming in the humanities. So we see books coming out called Ethics Out of Economics, or Economics as a Moral Science. So we're going to talk about what this means, and also for good governance then. So what are the problems that I see that are associated with this development? And there are two specific problems. On the one side, it's scientifically incorrect. We'll discuss that, and it's also morally undesirable. So what is the aim of what I think most economists would say economics strives after is a predictive theory. Yeah, this is from Oliver Williamson, also a Nobel laureate. And I would guess that most economists would say that a predictive theory is the aim because economists want to also give policy advice. So if you claim, or if you think you can, by means of your model, predict certain events, behavior, situations, then you're, of course, the most useful to policy advisors. Not everyone would say that a predictive theory is the aim. I guess some economists would also say that they want to explain. So an explanatory theory is the object. And we'll talk a little bit more about this distinction. However, if the only goal is prediction, then the assumptions need not be realistic. All that matters is that a model or theory works in the sense of producing accurate predictions. So let's take a closer look at one of the assumptions of transaction cost economics from Oliver Williamson. Opportunism and bounded rationality are the key behavioral assumptions on which transaction cost economics relies. So now, opportunism is a self-interest seeking with guile. Yeah, the guile, that's so it's not positive. It's not only positive. It has a negative connotation. Because any supposition that others behave responsibly, they are problematic, yeah? So trust is a priori gone, out of the picture. So any situation where someone trusts anyone else cannot be explained by this model. Just so you see what are the consequences for having this assumption. And we see its limits. Now there comes an extra dimension to it. This is a quote from Ghoshal. He was a really well-established management scholar. He says, unlike theories in the physical sciences, theories in the social sciences tend to be self-fulfilling. Negative assumptions become real. Managers adopt the theorist's worldview. So if you assume that most people act opportunistic, you will make sure that you have controls in place. The more controls you have, the more the people around will notice that you don't trust them. And this does something with your sense of dignity. And at the end, a lot of studies have shown that it actually creates the behavior that you wanted to prevent. Yeah, so people actually act more opportunistic when you hold this assumption. And yeah, his paper, it's his last paper before he died. It was called Bad Management Theories Destroy Good Management Practices. So now, Ronald Coase, another Nobel laureate, he has seen this tendency of economists to strive for predictions and predictive theory. And he also saw some of the negative developments thereof. So this is a quote from his only paper on the methodology of economics, testable predictions are not all that matters. And realism in our assumptions is needed if our theories are ever to help us understand why the system works in the way it does. So if you aim for predictions, you don't need to explain why this occurs. Yeah, so that's a little bit of a split. Most scientists would say, if you can explain why, then the possibility to deliver good predictions is even higher than if you only aim to predict. Realism in assumptions forces us to analyze the world that exists, not some imaginary world that does not. And now comes the interesting part. But our assumptions should not be completely realistic. There are factors we leave out because we do not know how to handle them. There are others we exclude because we do not feel the benefits of a more complete theory would be worth the costs involved in including them. Now, these are sentences of a real economist. And of course, it depends what he means. Where is the balance? Yeah, so we have some questions coming now that are very crucial because of the tendency for theories to be self-fulfilling in the social sciences. So let's now go to the core rational choice assumption as framed by Becker. All human behavior can be viewed as involving participants who maximize their utility. Probably this is a known phrase. And accumulate an optimal amount of information and other inputs. So last year, when I talked about trust, I already tried to show how if you assume that trust is only rational, if you have enough information about the other's psychology, institutional environment, then it's a priori irrational to trust immigrants, people you don't know. So this is a really morally undesirable consequence. And secondly, when you need information about the other, in order to control the situation, in order to make sure that the risks involved are not too big, this is not trust. Yeah, Williamson already said calculative trust is a contradiction in terms. So if you have this assumption, you already cannot explain trust. So back again to scientific incorrectness. But now let's leave aside trust. Let's go to love and altruism. We quote Gary Becker in his landmark book on a treatise of the family. It can be said that a male loves a female if her welfare enters his utility function. So love is conditional. It's conditional upon the other that you love needing to be of some kind of utility to you. However, if we follow some psychoanalysts and other philosophers, it seems that love mainly involves giving and the active concern for the life and growth of that which we love. This is Erich Fromm, a known psychoanalyst. It regards the intention to form a willingness to destroy yourself. Robert Nozick, wanting to better the well-being of someone else for the sake of that person, so not for yourself. On what does Gary Becker base his definition of love? It's based on his assumption, but it's not based on real life. But let's go further and see what he says. Even if the female were selfish and did not return the male's love, she would benefit from a match with someone who loves her and she doesn't love this person back, because he would transfer resources to her to increase his own utility. So someone is selfish, is in a relationship with someone who loves her, this person doesn't love back, and she still benefits from this. However, the selfish person does not love himself too much, but too little. In fact, he or she hates himself. His lack of productiveness, he is not, or she is not productive because she is a taker, not a giver. In order to give, you need to produce something. So he is not productive, leaves him empty and frustrated. He is necessarily unhappy. So how can Becker claim that a selfish person can benefit if this person doesn't know how to appreciate what this person gets? It's impossible. So, and even leaving aside this philosophical ramblings, even Gary Becker, yeah, concedes that since an altruist maximizes his own utility, he might be called selfish, not altruistic in terms of utility, in a book where he tried to talk about altruism. So the assumption already breaks his own conceptual scheme. And that's why I call it the annihilation of love, which is a sign that economics just should stay in its limits, yeah? Unfortunately, I cannot show this excerpt. It would have made some things more practical, but I wanted to show a scene from A Beautiful Mind, a very known film, where you see this in play, what Williamson just said, that strategic considerations come into play, and it's game theoretical type of situation created. Also, rational choice, the same rational choice assumption at play. So strategic considerations come into play only if opportunism is the operative condition. In the scene, you see 4 guys talking, and there are, I think, 4 girls, and there's one beautiful girl, and they try to contemplate that, okay, we should not go for the beautiful girl, because if she rejects us all, then we go for their friends, but then the friends don't want to be the second choice. So then we go home empty and nobody gets laid. So it's about getting laid. This is the opportunism thing. If the women would know that these guys only see her as an object, so if they were truthful and honest, the whole scheme would fall. So it's not about love, where you just have a normal conversation, and if something happens, you see no, this is all about strategy. It's not about love. But yeah, I'll share the slides and you can maybe see this at home. But there's even a bigger issue. So I just gave an example of 2 assumptions, and I tried to show that there's some moral undesirability involved. They're not scientifically correct because they cannot explain love or trust. And these assumptions, it seems that scientists can choose certain assumptions that fit their problem scheme. And if you take a look at the discussions, they would say, yeah, well, maybe it's not realistic, but look, I can predict in this type of situation, these would be the predictions. And then it's a rationalization to take this assumption. So let's go a bit underneath this. I'm claiming that all of these social scientific assumptions presuppose this one starting axiom. And an axiom is not an assumption, yeah? An axiom is a logical system. It's the assumption of the assumptions. You have to think of it like that. And it's only based in logic. You can think, reflect about it, or as most social scientists do, just not think about it. But this is a social scientist, an economist, Karl Homann, who clearly saw this main axiom of positivistic social science, I have to say, because there are hermeneutical methods, but they are not about explaining or predicting. They're about interpreting the meaning of concepts. So he says, all things are subject to the law of cause and effect. This great principle knows no exception, and we would search in vain in the realm of experience for an example to the contrary. Of course, if you're a scientist and you want to predict something, you have to assume that everything is subject to the law of cause and effect, because this is what you want to do. You want to show if this happens, then that will occur. And he is not wrong. However, this is a partial one-sided assumption. He's just not completely right. And now I'm gonna show you what I think is the most fundamental axiom for any social science. So he is right. All things are subject to the law of cause and effect, except that which is self-caused. So the question is, what is self-causation? And he is also right. We cannot look in experience for self-causation, because everything we see in this world is stuck in cause and effect relations. but that doesn't mean that self-causation is not a needed assumption. So this is not a new thought. Yeah, let's go back to Spinoza, 1677, his first two axioms. Again, there's a difference between assumptions and axioms. And I don't know if social scientists are aware of this. Axiom 1 of his ethics: all things that are either in themselves or in something else. Axiom number 2: that which cannot be conceived through another thing must be conceived through itself. So at least he shows that if you already think that everything stands in cause and effect, your position from which you see this already presupposes that something in this moment might not be stuck in cause and effect, because the real determined ones cannot know about their determination. So now we're going to reflect upon the position of the one who sees causation. Because causation, what David Hume said, is never seen out there, but Kant said, no, we project it in nature. So what is the logic of self-causation or self-causality? Because we need to somehow have a proof of this. Otherwise, Karl Menger is right, and all these theorists can just do what they wanted to do. And we have already seen some problematic issues. So first of all, the potential to reflect on causality presupposes some kind of self-causality. The neuroscientist that does experiments where he tries to show that our brain behaves before we rationalize upon what happened, his determination to do science is of a different kind than his determination to go to the toilet, to eat, or to do whatever. Yeah, so science presupposes a different quality of determination. However, if necessity, this is David Hume, makes an essential part of causation, so just think, if you can show that this causes that, this is a necessary relation. This is all he says there. Necessity makes an essential part of causation. Consequently, liberty, and this is an assumption that he gives, by removing necessity, removes also causes. So, of course, he thinks, oh, well, if liberty, oh, you can do something spontaneous, you're not stuck into determination, then it's not necessary. And if it's not necessary, it removes causes. And then liberty is the very same thing with chance. It will become clear why this logic doesn't work the way he thinks. And also in the line of research from Kant, they have shown that autonomy or liberty is maybe not a theoretical necessity as causation, but the necessity is a practical one. But we will get to this point. The consequence of if Hume is right, yeah, and if autonomy is conceptualized as chance, then it regards a mere accidental feature of human beings or decision-making, and this renders the concept unimportant. So any document you see talking about autonomy, dignity even, if you want, this is all ramble-jamble. It's a fad. It's nothing real. It's unimportant. Welcome. So now, my project, or our project, for autonomy to have substantial value, it must be shown to be a concept of necessity. Though not in a theoretical manner, but practically so. And remember, it's the possibility and rationality of love and trust that are at stake. Yeah, if these concepts cannot be construed as conditional qualities, because nobody can show to deserve trust. Or to deserve to be loved. So I can tell you, hey, trust me, look at this, look at my CV, look at everything, you should trust me. Like, I cannot force anyone to trust me. So there's nothing that shows that I deserve to be trusted. It's all in the power of the autonomous person if he or she wants to trust. In fact, Erich Fromm goes even further. Love and trust don't even need to be deserved. This fits with my perspective on what trust is. For me, trust is a non-binding moral obligation. Yeah, human beings should trust one another, at least try to trust, if you don't have clear evidence of the contrary. And even if you have clear evidence of the contrary, we all act untrustworthy in certain moments in life. And we should try to forgive. But yeah, these are all concepts that are very difficult. And no one can pressure you to do this, therefore it's non-binding. But if you are a trustworthy person and somebody, because of his or her trauma, cannot trust you, you really feel, first of all, really bad because your dignity or your sense of dignity is involved. The other person acts as if you're not dignified for their trust. So there's a lot at stake. So if we want to have a rational base for love and trust, which seem to have some kind of link with autonomy, we cannot force people to trust. We cannot give evidence for our trust. I cannot tell you, oh, love me, because look at this. Aren't I a lovable person? I would not, there's nothing in the world that can show that I deserve your love. But now, what seems to be unconditional from our perspective? The participants who were here last year this might sound a bit known, but it cannot be stated too often, I think. And I will draw the consequences of this, and that's new. So there's nothing in this life on earth that is unconditional. Everything is in the chains of cause and effect. However, if science wants to observe, or the mark of science is to observe things and to then explain and predict, then we can say nobody has seen the beginning of life. Yeah, even when you take a look at people who talk about the Big Bang theory, they don't talk about the bang happening from nothing. There was almost nothing. You hear them say, really, almost nothing. Of course, you cannot prove, you cannot see that something came from nothing. There must have been something, some principle, call it what you want, there that enabled this immense explosion to occur. So, from a scientific perspective, it seems that life, from our perspective, has something unconditional. From our perspective, it's an infinite process, a ceaseless movement, because we will never see the annihilation of life. Even if humans are gone, the probability that the galaxy further exists is very big. So it seems to be unconditional from our perspective. And since we have given or seen this assumption, the most probable assumption from our reason, we can also or must investigate what in our reason seems to have an unconditional quality. Well, Kant already said that reason produces questions that recur ad infinitum. So the moment some being has reason, there were questions. And these questions don't arise in a specific condition when you want. These questions just pop up because you have reason. So from the dawn of human beings till the end of you, there will be questions. So it seems to have an unconditional quality. Now, what does this mean now for social science? Well, first of all, it means that social science is based in ethics. Yeah, there's no ethics that comes from social science. And why is this? Now, this is a formulation that I gave, but it comes from thinking from Aristotle, who unfortunately didn't think his own principle through, but this is the only principle we have to determine what morality is, the only one. So since most ends, I would say any end, can be considered conditionally good, thus good for something else, even killing, everything, the moral good should distinguish itself by its ability to be conceptualized as unconditionally so, thus good in itself. Again, if we cannot determine unconditionality as a most rational assumption, most reasonable assumption from our perspective, then there is no morality. Yeah, then let's just talk, then everything is utility, everything is conditional good. Cultures cannot criticize one another. There's nothing. Yeah, it's all relative tradition. However, that's not how it is, because life is from our perspective, seems to have unconditional quality. Reason seems to have an unconditional quality. And because of this unconditionality or assumed unconditionality, they are moral goods which demand unconditional respect. So this assumption just cannot be taken away from social science anymore. This means that the discussions of normativity in social science, it's necessarily more normative. And now we can choose, do we want a bad normativity, opportunism, which cannot explain trust, and maybe it predicts some kind of behavior, and they've already shown that it predicts the opposite? Or are we gonna take a more scientific, realistic axiom, and we see that ethics is always a part of social science? So from this, there are two categorical imperatives that flow out of this. Sorry for my English, I haven't presented in English in a long time. So reasonable beings have the moral duty to always act with the effective intention. Later on, I will explain why the focus is on the intention. Effective intention to accord with the aims of life, to be alive. So they must strive to implement the conditions for universal good health. The second one, reasonable beings have the moral duty to always act with the effective intention to accord with the aims of reason, to be reasonable. So they must strive to implement the conditions for universal truthfulness. And truthfulness as a concept, already Bernard Williams showed, it has two components. One is honesty. You have to say what you really think you say, but the other has to do also with the truth factor, that you're always also trying to aim for that you know the facts. So it's honesty and really factual knowledge. Now, we're coming to the end slowly. What are the consequences of this thinking for good governance? And before we come to the last slide, if all conditional things are or can be apparently valued with priceless utility, the value of the unconditional must be denoted with another concept of worth. It's of a different quality. Now we have a concept that can describe in some sense what this is, and this is dignity. So what is the perspective of society, of life, of human beings when you have a purely economic, instrumental, conditional perspective of value? That where everything can be reduced to prices and utility. This is from Hobbes. For let a man, and I'm saying any person that only sees this one-sided assumption must accept this. This is the logical consequence, okay? So for let a man, as most men do, rate themselves at the highest value they can, yet their true value is no more than it is esteemed by others. So you might think that you have a high value. You're wrong, according to Hobbes. It's what we think your value is. It's conditional upon what others think of you. The public worth of a man, which is the value set on him by the Commonwealth, is that which men commonly call dignity. There is no real dignity, what I talked about, as an unconditional, the highest value that you cannot put a price on. No, it's just the public worth. This is your dignity. And this value of him by the Commonwealth is understood by offices of command, judicature, public employment, by names and titles, introduced for distinction of such value. So your own value is, what you, your jobs, your jobs, your utility for the society, this is your dignity. However, if you go and people finally accept what I just showed to be the basic axiom for social science, then there is also an ethical, intrinsic, unconditional value we call dignity. And I'm not the first. Again, it goes back to Spinoza, but the system is being made more explicit. Like people think philosophers disagree, that's why it's all, they don't really, the real good philosophers don't disagree. They disagree on technicalities. And I'm talking about technicalities, but that autonomy is a necessary concept. Dignity is a necessary concept. Anyway, so this is what I think should be the perspective we all have. And we have the duty that people should see it like this. Kant, everything has either a price or a dignity. Again, I told you, Karl Menger, it's not that he was wrong. Everything is in cause and effect. No, it's just that he was partly right. Except that which is self-cause. And what is self-cause has dignity. And you cannot explain it with prices. So everything either has a price or a dignity. Kant is in line with Spinoza. What has a price? In this matter, what has a price is such that something else can also be put in its place as its equivalent. If your dignity is linked with your role, well, your role can be functioned, or somebody else can perform your role. Yeah, then what happens to your dignity? If somebody else comes there, it's gone. You're of no use to society. But with this perspective, your dignity doesn't go away, only your market price. And that which is elevated above all price and admits of no equivalent has a dignity. Not merely a relative word, Hobbes, only relative, but rather an inner word. Morality and humanity, insofar, so morality, life in itself, reason in itself, and humanity, insofar as it is capable of humanity, insofar as we can act with the intention always to strive to for universal good health or universal truthfulness. If this is our aim always, then we feel the dignity. Is that alone which has dignity? Examples: fidelity in promising, trust. All of a sudden we can trust. Benevolence from principle, not from instinct, have an inner word. Let's take the two example, or this example, and this also explains why morality is linked with your intention. There's one action that's the same for both. So a man helps an old man over the street, but he does this to impress some girl for social esteem, or the same action, a man helps another man or a woman, whatever, because he thinks this is what is necessary. This is his duty. If we try to value this, everyone should say the one that does this from principle has more worth than the one who does it for self-esteem. First of all, the person who does it for self-esteem or for the esteem of others, if there's no one looking, he won't help the old man. He's going to walk by. Yeah, so this is not what we want. So here we already see the necessity for morality to be linked with our intention. It's not visible out there. Okay, I'm just going to finish up now. So the word of these principles does not consist in effects, that arise from them, in the advantage and utility that they obtain, but rather in the dispositions themselves. And we need to cultivate these dispositions for our dignity. And you have to do it because it's a moral duty. You don't do it for the effects. Otherwise, you're back to prices and you're back to, you won't feel dignity. So you see, we're stuck in this kind of dualism. Finally, and you should do this even if they are not favored with success. And we will come to the last slide and show the consequences for our ideas of governance are immense from these two perspectives. So economic governance, and this is a kind of new, so I have to, we can talk about this, but it's going in the right direction. Yeah, this is my last slide. Economic governance, main focus is on utility. It's only on the choices, not on the motivation. You also see this in economists when they write. No, because you cannot observe motivations. It's the choices what we observe, choices in producing and in consuming. And these choices are made to reach some goals, some objectives. It's only about the what. Now, good governance main focus is on dignity. And again, what has dignity also has a price. So what I need you to know is that good governance doesn't exclude economic governance. Economic governance doesn't have the possibility to include what is necessary for good governance. Yeah, so it's not that everything on the left side is wrong and bad. So it focuses on dignity. It's about the motivation. We have to act from moral duty or try. Yeah, children, little children, they act from self-interest. when we get more autonomous, we hope to finally get out of this, and don't think, oh, I'm here to just get. No, you have to get a feeling of, what do I owe the world? Children act as if, oh, what do you owe me something? I'm in this world I didn't choose. But this is a childish behavior. It's about purpose, yeah? About the how we do what we do and the why. Now, there's a lot of talk about purpose and organizational theory, but this is the foundation for why purpose is necessary. Economic governance, it's about the end result. Therefore, it's only about the transaction. It tries to determine what utility we get. It's just a consequence of the one before. Good governance is more focused on the development process. And again, in the process, there are results. You show your behavior, but you don't only focus on the results. You also take a perspective, okay, but this person is growing, is going in this direction, or society is not, we don't stop here. Our children are going to live when we die. So we have to think about the process. It's about the interaction. In the interaction, there are transactions. But if you focus more on the importance of relationships, it's something else than focusing on the transaction. So autonomy is the main focus. In our autonomy lies our sense of dignity, which is elevated above any price. So also something like a Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, how do you explain somebody who, it seems, throws away all kinds of worldly desires, or Jesus, I don't know, in Aruba people are very religious, but how do you explain somebody like that? Well, because there is a power of dignity where you act from a purpose, and you can even overcome a lot of pain for the good cause. Economic governance, it's all about rational strategic action, which all presuppose opportunism, if you are conscious of it or not. Any strategic thinking presupposes opportunism. The other side is reasonable and communicative action. And as I was thinking of this, I was not explicitly thinking of Habermas, but this is Habermas back again. And here we necessarily have trust, because if you communicate with somebody, the other presupposes that you are saying honest, that you give an honest representation of what you think. If I think to know that you're not giving me an honest representation, I won't talk to you. It doesn't make sense. Economic governance, it's all about control. Yeah, it's rules. We need rules, incentives to get the utility, to make the choices, to get our goals. I've been looking also about thinking about people who want to stop or diminish. I'm looking for the word. I was looking at your website. Something with a C. How do you call corruption? Corruption. We can. If you think Aruba has a tendency to be corrupt, well, we can think about rules, incentives to minimize corruption, but you won't get rid of corruption. This is just a side thing. If you want to get rid of corruption, you need to go to the motivations. Yeah. So good governance is not about control. It tries to inspire. If you want people to follow you, you have to make sense or trigger their moral imagination. Yeah, if people understand why the purpose is necessary, they will follow you. You don't need to control them, but just make sure that you can inspire them to understand where you want to go. And this doesn't mean that there's no type of feedback loops that you can integrate or whatever, but it's just that if your focus is the feedback loops, the control, then you won't get the motivational part that is necessary for dignity and autonomy. Economic governance, efficiency, profits, shareholder-oriented. Good governance is focusing on value creation. Yeah, value creation is more than just profits. There are some values that you just cannot put a monetary price. Yeah, if some tribe has high, how do you call it, religious values, they would give up so much to just live in their peaceful life for their religious values. And well, we can talk about maybe we have to talk about what this type of life means for them, and what is the benefit for us if we take this away from them. And it's not so easy to put everything in a monetary value. That's all I wanted to say. And it's more stakeholder oriented. And shareholders are important stakeholders, of course. Again, monetary measurements, the focus, monetary valuation. It's about standardizing good governance. Okay, this is a big word or concept, multivocal inscription. This is just a concept that says we need to, if you want to perform good governance, you need to not just wait for the cost-benefit analysis and then make your decision. No, you need to try to include different stakeholders, have different evaluative criteria that include profits or the GDP, but also other values. And then it's going to be more difficult. You need some interpretive flexibility. Focus on risks, economic governance, it's simplicity. Good governance sees that there are risks, and in some sectors we need to calculate these and have models that can manage these. However, in our life, because of autonomy, there is more than risks. There's uncertainty, and thank God, or not thank God, but more and more people are seeing this. We have grand challenges, they call it, global warming, we have rising inequality. These are things that we cannot easily, nobody can easily handle this with a certain model, otherwise we would have already tackled these issues. So more and more, if you focus on good governance, we need to have competences that can deal with complexity and not just quick based, oh, no, I have this cost-benefit analysis without an interpretive frame, because it's not bad to have this analysis, but you need a broader picture. What did you leave out of the analysis? That's good governance. It's not, oh, I have a cost-benefit analysis. This is economic governance. Economic governance focused on other management. It's directive. Good governance is focused on self-leadership. And these are not just like a guru concepts. Self-leadership, again, if motivation is the aim, if dignity is the aim, you cannot control for this. You need to inspire people to be leaders themselves. And this kind of presupposes trust. So it's a big difference. And the last point, because I don't know, the list can go on, but economic governance is more focused on skills, competences. Good governance is also focused on attitude and mindset. So I saw this from a colleague. I thought it was a nice way to end the session. Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. Thank you for the patience, everyone. Oh, somebody said that they could not see the PowerPoint on Zoom.
I think it's now time for questions.
Yes, I also have one extra slide, which gives also more of an example of what I think the embodiment of somebody who from a distance seems to be doing good governance. Maybe this, I will just put everything here, and maybe it inspires some other questions too. And if there are no pressing questions now, we can also just quickly go through this and maybe. So does somebody have a question? That
I have a question.
Okay, yeah.
My name is Michael. Bachelor degree in Business Law. I studied with your mother in Holland. Some reason I have to tell you honestly, she didn't make it. But it's about my self estimate to get my bachelor degree. And that education was, if you got 5.9, it's not enough. You have to get 6.0. For example, that was education. Yes, You have to 5.9 is negative, 6.0 is positive. Then you can go to the second trimester. That was my experience. And for every, we have to make five insurance certificate, and for each you have to get 6.0, and you have in a period of 2 years, two years and 6 months to get all the 5 certificate. Okay, we have defined that. I am completely agreed with you that when our students go abroad, they have Mahalo, they have very old, and they finish the study, they cannot get a job, because if you don't have political friends, you never get a job. That's my opinion.
Okay, so it was a comment, or what? It was a comment. Yeah, so I have something to say about the beginning, what you said. So I also think that it's a bit problematic that the main focus lies on this grade. Because if let's take this framework, this grade is one side of the question, but there's a context.
Yeah.
So if we don't see or take a look at the development process or take certain contingencies of the student into account, which sometimes is really difficult. Sometimes professors have classes 400 or 500 students. I was in a lot of those. How do you take a look at all the specific? This is a big issue for, I think, for education, and there are different educational systems and alternative views, and yeah, so I can agree with you that a pure focus on the numbers might not be the real representation of the competences that lie in this person.
Right.
But again, so what do you do with this? This person that does not have success in the study, first of all, I would say your value is not dependent on your grades, on your study.
Okay, my question is,
so
you are a PhD, you think you will come back to give lecture at the university? You think we have many professionals, most of them maybe surgeons, top surgeons, they will not come to Aruba behind yourself.
Okay, so this is a different question. So first of all, I just wanted to tell you that in my framework, I would say you're right. Only focusing on grades, this is not a real representation. It would be better if we focus more on the context. If we can see the development, there are already some methods in teaching and some places where they implement this, not everywhere. Then for the student, your self-worth, your dignity doesn't depend on this. So don't let yourself be caught up. If you don't, I have applied to various jobs. I get a lot of rejections. You know, you should try to know, I stand above this. There are many conditionalities that decide why I don't get this job. So this is what I can, what I would say to this. And then to my personal situation, to be really honest, I studied so much because I myself, and therefore I thought I was well there. I didn't think of coming back because I wasn't ready yet. Now that I'm slowly starting to feel ready, I have a child who is 4 years old with my ex-girlfriend who is a German. So practically, if I would come back to Aruba now, I will not be a good father. And to be honest, I'd rather be a good father than have the best, my career, like what I think my career should be. But I'm here and I'm open for any good possibility. So yeah.
Answered. Are there more questions?
Yes, Michael.
Yeah, please.
My name is Michiel.
Yeah.
And I have to say, this was very inspiring and passionate presentation that you gave. So thank you for that. But at the same time, I have to admit there were many steps
sort of, is it a proper word to say that they quizzed me, that I thought, oh, wait a minute, what's he doing? And then already you made the next jump. And I thought, oh, gosh, I'm somewhat lost.
I'm sorry for that.
No, I mean, I think this is the way you have to do it. Sometimes there's no, unless we take the whole day, we could do that, of course. But
That's why I started with this is 16 years of thinking that kind of accumulated in this. So I try to reduce everything.
One thing that maybe more specifically I would want to address, aside from that, I will take it to my social science colleagues and tell them that according to what you presented, ethics is the basis of that. I think some will take issue with that, but in that sense, it's already an interesting topic to say,
Yeah.
which is good, I think. But when your narrative, if I might call it that, came to the stage of governance, and then you had the dichotomy where the naming already was sort of suggesting a bias, because when one of those is called good governance, well, then that would have to come out on top, so to speak, which in my perception is also what happened. It wasn't intended as a sort of moral judgment, but the title suggested this, and it also made me think in the relationship with, particularly with utility. And I think of the work by Roger Brownsworth, words in regulatory theory, he has these ethical stances of utility and dignitarian position, duty and rights. And so there's a trichotomy in which there is maybe, if I relate it to this, a third dimension that would be more about freedom, that in the sense that economics seems to be about social benefit in terms of utility, and what the good governance will be the dignity, and then you have the rights position as an ethical stance that would be more about freedom, individual freedom.
Okay, I can.
So
There's a few things I can address right now.
Sorry,
No. It's
in the thought process.
I would say this. So, social scientists who don't understand what the axiom is underlying their assumptions. So scientists only work with assumptions. It's all right if you have a certain problem that you want to answer and you need these assumptions to answer that. Hey, who am I? Transaction cost economics has its merit. However, what my story is saying, you need to take heed of what you're leaving out. In your advice to other policymakers, you can say, okay, well, with my opportunism assumption, I predict these and that behaviors, this situation. However, I'm leaving out this aspect, which is also important, or this might be problematic if you don't take this into account in this situation. So what I would say, if social scientists have a problem with ethics being the basis, first on the scientific account, I would say think a bit more of the assumptions, because they assume probably they don't understand that self-causality is that there's a logic that determines self-causality. They're stuck in cause and effect. So I would say that first they're wrong, and the second, if they no, you're laughing, but they have to. There's no one. It's only one-sided if you stick in cause and effect. And then even if you do this and you say, well, I don't know about this, but I know that my theory works under these assumptions, then I would say, okay, but it's one-sided. Take into account this other part. You're leaving out dignity. Dignity is elevated above all price. How can social science see dignity? You don't see dignity. You don't see autonomy. You don't see it. It's assumed. And I try to show the necessity for assuming this. So, but now let's go back to here. This is not a dichotomy. Good governance includes economic governance. Economic governance is only stuck in cause and effect. It cannot understand dignity. We've seen Thomas Hobbes. This is necessary. So everything is reduced to conditionalities. This is very bad for society. So I'm saying that it's not that only that economic governance is bad per se. It's bad if you don't know that there is another side that it's incomplete. And I have the feeling that we are only stuck in this. But take a look at measurements. Profits. Profits doesn't say that the company is healthy. There are unhealthy companies that are profitable. They're unhealthy. Why? They don't innovate. Yeah, they're stuck on the same thing. Maybe they have a lot of externalities. A lot of bad costs for society, but they're profitable. So if your only standard is the economic one, you leave out something more important. So there's a normative aspect because social science lies in ethics. And good governance doesn't exclude economic. It just says that economic is one little side, and you need to step out of economic thinking to understand the other side. Dignity you cannot understand with economic thinking. How would an economist explain? I'll leave it out here. Oh, and law. So we see law already indirectly here. So there have been, so Williamson was actually part of the economics and law faculty. There's a lot, Posner, you know Posner, everything is based on economics. They think that law should be constructed with a rational choice conceptualization. However, there's a other part, I think, who are more right, who say that no, laws come from notions of dignity. Yeah, every rule that we have comes from a notion that is previous, that we should go in this direction. But okay, maybe I'm going to say something really technical right now. And this was something that already Leibniz said. There is no positive criteria for immorality, which means that on the level of actions, there is no immorality. So because everything, I already said it before, can be good for something else. Lying can be good in certain situations, but it's never morally good. It's utilitarian good. Killing can be good for self-defense in certain situations. It's never a moral good. You did something that you should not want to do. You are pressured to do this but it's not moral. So immorality is not in the level of actions. Immoral is the person that wants to kill. Immoral is the character thing. That's why it has to do with motivation. Hitler was an immoral person because he consistently did something that it was not a necessary evil. And and because of this, because we at one point need rules to show what morality implies. We know what is good, but sometimes we need rules to say what we should not do, because there is no positive criterion for the bad. So the bad, we have laws to say, oh, the law is negative. Law is primarily negative. Even the good things come in a negative form. Don't do this. Of course, you have taxes, but at the end, there's a... Okay, I stop here because I can continue. No, but please, you can say something back. Because on what do you think, where does law come from? Where does the criteria for law for you come from? Because for me, it comes from morality, but morality says what we have to do. It doesn't say what we don't do, because the immorality is not created with a positive criteria. Therefore, we have law, in my account, to account for the things that we should not do. So this is my explanation for how law came about. But I would wonder how you would explain.
A mixed bag. So it was a social failure of informal relations.
No, definitely.
Dignity is an important factor, but it doesn't necessarily say that law always reflecting the moral good. It's not
The moral bad.
Overlaps these.
The moral bad. It reflects the moral bad. So law came into place when we noticed that morality wasn't doing its job. Societies became more complex. We needed to install law to let people know what you should not do.
Yeah. Driving on the left or the right side of the road is less moral choice.
Exactly, but these are norms for practical utilitarian reasons. But this is These are like choices that we make in every culture, and then you can make your own choices. But at the moment, for example, the gun law in the States, I could, with my framework, I could say that this policy would lead to a really bad society. Yeah, it's a society that is focused, that gives the opportunity to people to kill others. But so the intention to always strive for the health, universal health, is put into it gets more intention there. They make it easier to do something that we don't want people to do. But this is based not. So I would say this law is not based on the right. It's based on a utilitarian reason. Oh, everyone should defend themselves, your property, utility, make sure. But this is not based on an ethical thinking, because the ethical thinking would say, no, this should be abandoned. So also on the policy area, I would say if you go with this utility thinking, you get these perverted policies that lead to a really bad society in moral terms, I would say.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask you before? So I'm not going to ask the question itself because it's going to be quite intense from the point. But can you put slavery into the framework? As the topic was about women that apologize for the slavery done in the Caribbean, and you put that in the framework and you want to talk about it.
I slavery was just always bad, and people knew it was bad. People did it for economic reasons. It even with the killing of the Jews, for me, it's the same thing. It's the same reasoning. You first, what legitimizes slaves is thinking that they are not equal on the same pace as you. Actually, they are not humans. They are not worthy. They don't have dignity. That's the only way you can objectify people like that. So, and you can only do this in the economic framework. They are of only objects. But if you have the good governance framework, you know that you have to see people, this is Kant all again, not only as an object. That's why this is not a dichotomy. It's not that we don't use each other. We use each other every day, but this is not bad. Don't only use people. Also see them as an object, subject of dignified and with a dignified value. And this is what this had not been done. So this is the economic framework that legitimized slavery, legitimized the Jews. If you read, I have his book from Hitler, Mein Kampf. He tries to show from an evolutionary perspective, and it's really crazy how he tries to deceive you, that the Jews are not a strong, they're not a healthy race. So for our evolution, it's better to get rid of them, because if we mingle with them, we will have less strong characteristics. So they are put on a line, not really human worthy. Therefore, we can kill them. It's for our own best, and it's a utilitarian thinking.
Yeah, I'm teaching Roman law, and there are many theories.
This is really the last question, because afterwards I think we can drink coffee outside. And
But there's a slavery before you had the plantations. A slave was like part of the family, and it was, on the one hand, a depending worker, but on the other hand, a complete part of the family in the social structure. And only when later the plantation came, then it became an economic factor. So also in slavery, I would have, from the legal point of view, a slight different view also this evolution of the treatment of the slaves.
But I would say even the fact that from the legal point of view, there were beings that had a denote that you could denote as slaves, which they could not really do what they really wanted.
Same with sons in the house. Yeah.
Sorry?
The son in the house who had not his manomissio had the same status.
The son.
A son or a daughter.
Same status as?
Yeah, as a slave also. That was a depending person. Also
Yeah.
is not freedom in this structure.
I mean, with children, this a bit. They are also not yet autonomous, so they are. dependent, really dependent. So we need some kind of laws to protect them. And I think it's better for them if they stay in the family, if the family is a healthy one. But with slaves, we cannot have the same rationale as for children, because what if a slave wanted to not be part of the family? Like if a child doesn't want to be part of the family, he would probably, in a good society, be put under another family. I mean, if the family hits and beats him, we will put him in a, I don't know, in some institution that is a better kind of fostering for the child. But we cannot do the same with the slave, because a slave should be autonomous person, but they were not seen as autonomous. That's why they had to stay in the family. So I think it's a perverted, the economic thinking is pervasive in the law already, because otherwise it would, if it wasn't, there would be no slaves. No matter how good you treat the slave, he's still not a dignified, autonomous person that can do what he wants.
But the son under 25 also not so.
Yeah, but this is legitimate because he is not yet an autonomous. We have to train him. My son of 4 years old, I want him sometimes to go. No, but really, hey, I'm here 2 weeks with him alone. He's driving me mad. But it's my duty to let him go as soon as he is ready. And of course, for the law, you cannot say, oh, 16, you're ready, 18, this is a bit, okay, this is guessing. But the fact that there should be a point that your son, daughter goes, but was this with the slave? So yeah, the slave was not in this development part. The slave was already a grown person that just had to be in the family. And couldn't get away. So I would say this is only based in, again, in economic thinking. He didn't have the autonomy to do, and children don't have the autonomy. So this is, autonomy grows with experience. But it is there as a principle.
Yes.
Just like the seed has the tree, but it's not yet the tree.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I really thank you. I myself am so behind this and studying public administration and organizational sciences, and also we teach your OGM, the Organization Government Management. Rowan is one of our student assistants. I think we recognize that we teach with different perspectives, because ruling from one perspective is not they don't have the complete truth. So, for example, the course disciplinary approach that you're now following, we study law, anthropology, sociology, and psychology. So here you see also, I really like it that you have those two perspectives.
And also in social science, sorry that it's so, but you have hermeneutical methods, right? So I put into brackets positivistic social science that thinks that everything you can do is just to explain, just like the physical sciences. I'm talking about that.
So I'm really grateful for that, and also good governance is really a hot topic on Aruba, because we also have a lot of bad governance, and we need to turn that. That's really something that we are thinking of. How can we do that? And I myself believe that you need to have like some laws, and they need to be in place, but also like inspiring people to do good. I think that's one of the things that we as the good governance initiative institute, together with Stichting Bestuur, are really trying to inspire people. So I really thank you for inspiring with this lecture people, and also thinking, because I remember from last time that you do a lot of thinking.
And I really, before we all go, I can we just read the things that I underlined, because no, because this makes everything that I just said, like, so this is an ex-CEO from Novo Nordisk, which is a pharmaceutical company. He got in 2015 from Harvard Business Review the prize for the best functioning, best performing CEO. So there were some questions, and I thought these were the most exemplificatory for what I think is a good example of good governance, or somebody that would practice it. So first of all, if he was the top one, ask executives why they are performing so well. They'll typically say a brilliant strategy coupled with a hard-nosed directive, diligent execution. But when you ask him, he says luck, because he knows its context. And this is all, if you take one message, this is all. So it's not that economic governance is bad. It just lacks context, the right context. So what happens to your business if diabetes is eventually cured? This for me is an example of somebody who really looks at not a goal, but has a vision of why he does what he does. If we wind up curing diabetes and it destroys a big part of our business, we can be proud and you can get a job anywhere. We'll have worked on the greatest social service of any pharmaceutical company, and that would be a phenomenal thing. Now, we don't know if he just says this. I don't think so, because if you just take a look at everything he says and what he's done, it just, everything fits really perfectly. I would want every CEO, everyone to have this in mind. So if you have a product, you don't try to make it technically a bit bad so that people have to keep buying new products. No, you want people who say, our product is so good, at some point, we don't exist anymore. Now, this is good, somebody doing good governance. How has your leadership style changed? First, he was more operational, and then in CEO, he had to focus more on establishing the tone. Yeah, this is what I was thinking, talking about ethics and the values, and personally communicating. Yeah, the communicative, reasonable action, and not strategic action. Communicating with our employees and stakeholders. Then the last one. Any other lessons to share? I thought this was funny. I should have said at the beginning that I don't like this notion of the best performing CEO in the world. That's an American perspective. You lionize individuals. I would say that I'm leading a team that is collectively creating one of the world's best performing companies. And it's a very big difference. It's a big difference than the world's best performing CEO. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. So it's also a mindset, and it's just how you frame it. It's not about you, it's the collective. Okay.
I really thank you for the point. Also, I believe that it's not about us, it's about the individual, but it's about us as a whole. So thank you very much. That I want a big applause. For a lot of questions. So I hope that next time, next year when you're back,